Okay, September 23rd is our next All Connect meeting next month. It'll still be here at East Gillette. With Judy Dorsey, she's with the Brindle Group. She's going to be talking to us about sustainable businesses and how to have a sustainable business. Mentorship program launched Thursday, October 1st. So how many of you know that we have a mentorship program? Awesome. Okay, great. So we do. We have a mentorship program. What that looks like is that if you are looking for a mentor, you can fill out our survey and be able to just tell us like some information of what you're looking for. If you want to be a mentee, if you are looking for a mentor, you fill it out. If you want to be a mentor, you can also fill it out. And then we try to match you up based off of your surveys, is what you're looking for, what you're needing. So if you're needing somebody who has strong organizational skills, or somebody who has strong financial skills, then we're going to match you up with someone to help reach your goals. Okay, it's based on the SMART program. So that's going to be a meetup. So it's just casual, where we can give you more information about it. So please come join us for that. Save the date. Here's a big one. Thursday, October 22nd at 7 p.m. Okay, it's going to be our first annual fundraiser. We're going to have a big, both live and silent auction. It's here at East Gillette's again, okay? We're doing a 20s theme, so perfect here at the speakeasy, right? So we're going to have all kinds of stuff with women from the 20s that were really informational in our nation and in the world. I mean, that was a huge time where women, just a lot of women's movements came through then. So we'd love to have you come join us for that fundraiser. So be looking for information coming out on ticket sales with that. With that being said, Danny, who's our fundraising chair, Danny needs some help, okay? So this isn't one of those like committees where you have to sign up and be on a committee all year long. It's just a one-time event that she would love to have a team to help support her with putting this big event together. So if you'd like to help with that, please see Danny after the meeting tonight.
And also scholarships.
Oh, so the money goes to, yes, so all the funds, thank you, Amber. All the funds from that fundraiser go to our scholarship program. So the scholarship program is that we have funds every month that you can apply for to be able to do workshops. It does not have to be workshops with HOP. It can be workshops with the Small Business Development Center, which you're going to hear more about tonight. It could be workshops with any of our state colleges. It could be, whatever. It's just a workshop that helps you to grow with your business. Okay. We're looking for volunteers to sit at our table at the Sustainable Living Fair. So that's coming, what's the date on that?
September 12th and 13th.
September 12th and 13th. So we will have a booth at the Sustainable Living Fair. We would love to have volunteers to come sit and give information out to people passing by about Alley Women Entrepreneurs. So if you'd like to sign up to help with that, the time slots are you doing hour, 2-hour blocks?
I did 2 hour.
2-hour blocks. So if you don't mind coming in and just sitting for 2 hours.
And then you get in for free.
Oh, in for free. Perfect. Look at that. Come to the Sustainability, you're in for free. And just see Amber about that. So she's got the sign up genius. She can send you that link to be able to sign up for that. Okay. Questions for me? That was a lot tonight. A lot more announcements than normal. Okay. I'm so happy to introduce to you Mike O'Connell. Mike is the director of the Larimer County Small Business Development Center. He earned a business degree from Purdue University and worked in a variety of executive sales, marketing, and business unit management positions, including 11 years with Thermodyne Holdings, North America's third largest manufacturer of metal cutting and welding equipment. In 2001, O'Connell purchased Mountain Woods Furniture, a leading national designer manufacturer of rustic handcrafted furniture, which was awesome, by the way, and co-owned and operated that business until its sale in December of 2011. In July 2013, Mike became director of the Larimer Small Business Development Center. He's going to talk to us tonight about the top ways businesses get in trouble and how the Small Business Development Center can help. So please welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer. Man, I got showed up that bio. Sorry to make you have to read that. Welcome. Sorry, thanks for listening tonight, and it's good to be here. I appreciate the invitation. I really, by the way, like what Awe is doing, because one of the things that I noticed during my time in business ownership is it can be lonely. So it is really good that you guys have a support system for yourselves to talk to and commiserate about things and applaud successes. So I think that's great. Let me go into a couple things here, if I may. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center, or SBDC. The territory I cover is the county, although most of the work I do is here in Fort Collins, and I'm going to talk to you a bit more about that a little later. I don't know if you knew this, but there are about 22 million small businesses in the United States, and in Colorado, about 40% of that number is women-owned businesses. So it is a big business. It makes up over half of all the employees that are employed in the private sector, and it's over half of America's gross domestic product. So it is big numbers, and it does kind of always grade it on you a bit that we don't really get the credit for the work that we do in small businesses compared to big corporations that get all the publicity and the legislative attention, etc. And our mission is to help those small businesses. And by the way, this is very informal. If you got any questions, comments as I go along, you want to yell them out, feel free to do so. I'm not going to call on you, but feel free to let me know as we go. Just a quick bit about myself on the bio. As Jennifer said, I work for a welding company, and I primarily went up through their sales and marketing channel, marketing manager, VP of sales and marketing, ran a couple of business units for them. We made products like this. You know, you see them in all the Terminator movies where somebody's running around with a metal cutting torch. That's what we made. It was actually a very interesting company. They had about a 50% market share of the U.S. market, and the next nearest competitor had about 15%. So it was a very dominant market position to be in. And I learned quite a bit about certain structure and responsibility when I did that. And then in 2000, I bought a company called Mountain Woods Furniture, and we made rustic log furniture. It was about 25 employees at the time I bought it. There was two pieces to it. There was a manufacturing plant, which was in Laramie, Wyoming, and I commuted from Fort Thomas to Laramie. And there was also a retail store. And if any of you have been to the Little Bird Bake Shop, that's where our rustic furniture store was before it became a coffee shop. And we sold that in 2006. And eventually I got tired of commuting to Laramie most days of the week, so I sold the pieces. But Cabela's was one of our biggest customers. If you have opened up the Cabela's catalog and seen something that's like this, the lower part there, all those products were made in Laramie by us for Cabela's. We shipped them all over North America for them. Had a lot of shipping horror stories to tell you. Shipping a Queen futon Maine, it's busted up, and you have to reship it. And then in about 2005, 2006, Jennifer can relate to this, but we launched a big additional line. It was called Barnwood Furniture. We called it the Wyoming Collection. And it was all basically made from Wyoming snow fence. So this gave us a big additional line to our Aspen Log furniture line. So that was a very cool addition, and in about 2011, I sold the business. So what did I learn during the time I owned the business? And that's what I'm going to kind of talk about a bit today. First thing I'm going to kind of show you here is I did, over time, develop some myths about what you hear about owning the business versus what the realities are. So I'll just kind of share those with you now, if I may, before I get into the problems I see that businesses run into. So I had 4 myths that I developed. I hear this a lot. There's a theory out there that you need to be good at everything. And what I came to learn and realize as I'm talking to people is that you don't have to be good at everything because it's impossible. We're all human, but you can't afford to be bad at anything. And the difference between that and where I'm going with this is you're going to have your strengths, and people are generally work better playing their strengths and then finding a partner that can help them with their weaknesses or stuff that they don't choose to do. For example, I despise doing taxes. I hate it. I would pay my accountant 3 times what I pay him now to do my taxes. I love developing product. I love doing sales of products. So, however, you can't afford not to do your taxes. You can't afford not to be engaging with employees. I mean, you have to hit all things that make a business hum successfully, and if you can't do it yourself, which a lot of people try to do, then you have to find people that can help do that for you and partner up with you that you trust. And it's a lot like dating. You're going to maybe interview 2 or 3 bookkeepers until you find what you like, or 3 or 4 IT people until you find somebody you trust to do your website that gets your vision. So I see a lot of this where people try to do everything and it doesn't get done. So partner up with some people. I mean, you've got great connections here, and find people that can help you with what you're doing. You could be your own boss. Not true. Well, you're going to have multiple bosses, and if you get crossways with any particular group, it's going to make your life difficult. I've had issues with customers collectively. I've had issues with employees collectively. I had issues with Wyoming State Fire and Electrical. I had issues with my commercial insurance company. I had issues with bankers. And you have to be pretty adept at juggling all those things to make things click. So being able to kind of multitask, well, talking to a bunch of women, I'm sure you're good at multitasking, but it goes a long way to doing that. So the idea, and I literally, in the SBDC, had people come up to me and say, I don't get along very well with people, so I'm thinking about starting my own business. I'm like, really? Seriously, that's happened. So I encourage people to think of having multiple bosses or stakeholders. Work when you want to, another one of my favorites. And I come back and say, sure, as long as it's at least 60 hours a week and you're thinking about it all the way up to being out. I can't tell me people have said to me, you're physically here, but you're not here. Then, yeah, I know. And that, the work, I'm really glad to see in your agenda coming up, you've got some discussion about work-life balance, because I could have been much, much better at that than I was. It can be very consuming, your work, right? And you can get drawn into as much time as you have to put into it. So creating a way or mechanism or vehicle to separate your work life from your social life is important and needs some conscious thought, I believe. Employees are your most important asset if you happen to have one you're looking at. Not true. In my opinion, good employees are your most important assets. And I can tell you one of the things I would have done differently with employees is I was a bit of a fixer. So I'd spend all kinds of time trying to put these square pegs in the round hole. And when it really should have, it worked much better just to say, let's part ways, this is your thing, it's not my thing, rather than spending 6 months trying to fix a situation that didn't merit fixing. So anyway, so those are kind of my myths about what I observed about business. And then I'm going to go on to talk about so what I do in the Small Business Development Center, myself and my consultants, is we have a lot of different people that we give free consulting advice. And I never cease to be amazed by how many different ways that people find to make a living and make money creatively. It's astounding. And it really comes home to roost to me, because when you pick up in Colorado, you tend to read about the same 20 companies over and over and over again. Thank God they're here. Woodward, New Belgium, Otterbox. But there's so much cool stuff that goes on underneath the surface that you never really get to read about, and I see a lot of that. I'll throw one out for example. There is a guy in Estes Park who is a national expert on buying and selling rubber tire trolleys. And he has revenue that's over $500,000 a year. And if there's a divorce and somebody needs an opinion on the value of the trolley, he'll write up a report about what the trolley's worth. If there's an estate issue and somebody dies, well, what are these trolleys valued at? He'll give him an opinion. If there's trolleys for sale in St. Louis and Atlanta wants to buy trolleys to run through their tourist district, he'll broker the deal and get the trolleys up and running. Ever heard of it? We've been doing it 20 years in Estes Park. Yeah, trolley brokers. Fascinating story. And I could name, 6 more like that. So I'm really impressed with how much is going on in this area. We're pretty lucky because we have a very diverse economy. We don't live and die off the price of oil. We don't live and die off of retail sales. It's a very diverse basis for what we do. So I'm anyway, at the SBDC, we hear a lot of different things, we hear a lot of different issues, but I actually consulted with a couple of commercial bankers, and I have my own ideas about, I saw businesses kind of getting in trouble with the same stuff. And this is a little unusual for me because I'm generally a glass half full kind of guy, so I'm now talking about the negatives, so you're going to kind of reverse this. But these bankers and I help me put the list together, because bankers, whether you like them or not, they deal with a lot of different businesses. So we see pretty much the same issues, and I wanted to tell you what I've seen to be the top 6 that people don't think about enough or aren't aware of, and it hurts them because they get negative surprises generally. So let me start with the first one. Not putting enough value on the goods and services that you do, meaning most of what I see is not people charging too much, they're not charging enough. And the reason they don't do that is for a couple reasons. Number one, people don't really understand all their costs. You know, somebody will be going to a carpentry job. Well, I'm not really counting my truck and my cost, and if I'm making X dollars an hour, I'm pretty good. Well, wait a minute, if the truck breaks down, you got to replace that. Where's that money supposed to come from? So there's a whole concept of overhead costs that don't enter into things. There's people's ego. Well, I couldn't possibly charge that much. Well, have you looked at your competitors? They're charging that much. Why are you the low person out there? There's family dynamics. I've had married couples that come into me, and it's usually the guy that says, I can do that job in an hour, and then the wife says, no, you can't. It takes you an hour and a half all the time. And you say you can do it in an hour, but you never can do it in an hour. And that's an issue because they're looking to create a living for the family, and he's basically underpricing everything. So I see way more people not charging enough versus overcharging. Okay, you can at least work down a bit.
Can you give some suggestions for how to determine good pricing?
Boy, is that a good question. We had a health and wellness panel last month. We had 35 people there, and this was for like chiropractors, massage therapists, Reiki practitioners. It wasn't like at a Kaiser Banner type level. And that was probably the single biggest topic that got talked about to the panelists is how do you price stuff? How do you discount? How do you do packages versus individual things? And we're actually going to do a class on it next year about pricing. But generally, I look at it, it's a bit of a Rubik's Cube. I look at it 3 ways. You got to cover your costs. I'm giving you a quick answer here. You got to be aware of what your costs are and cover them. You got to know what the competitive landscape is, who's doing what, and that doesn't mean you go out to 50 people that are sort of kind of doing what you're doing. There's probably 3 or 4 people that are right in your wheelhouse as far as what you're doing and you run across all the time. Those are really the ones where you want to know what are they charging. Like, I was in the furniture business, so there was about 3 companies. I'd say my queen bed to a wholesaler is $800. And I know this guy is $750, but he can't deliver for 12 weeks, so I'm not going to worry about that. And you just start, as you know these people, you kind of start baking that into the equation. And the third and final thing is, are you making the profit you need to? You know, you don't want to do those things and then find out, well, I'm not making any money on it. So there's no hard and fast formula, but you kind of got to be aware of those 3 things and then see, is this a fit for what I'm doing? So, and we're going to kind of blow that into probably a 2-hour class just about discounting, package prices, and explain greatly what I talked about. But that to me is the 3 things that I do. Number 2, not understanding your cash flow process. It sounds very boring, kind of like economics, but cash flow is, businesses don't succeed if they don't have cash flow. And cash flow can be influenced by things like, how are you managing your inventory? Do you have a year's worth of supply sitting around in your cellar? Because nothing is harder than getting rid of obsolete inventory, getting rid of slow-moving inventory. I've had a couple clients that have come to me and they say, God, my accountant says I'm making money because here's the financials. I look at it, yep, it says you're making a profit. Profit is not the same as cash flow. The accountant says you're making a profit, however, you're paying your vendors in 15 days and your customers are paying you in 60. That's where your money is. It's sitting there in 45 days of spread that you don't have your hands on. So ideally, if you're selling to another business, you would expect to pay your vendors in, say, 30 days. Conversely, you should expect to be paid in 30 days from your customers. If you've got people that are paying you in 45, 60 days, that's a sign for you to get involved, because that needs to get tightened up. If you're in a retail business and you can charge customers with credit cards, great. You don't have the accounts receivable. They're charging you 2.5% for the credit card fee, which you can recover with pricing, but you don't have any risk of bad debt. You don't have any risk of not getting paid for 60 days. So that's an advantage. But again, this is a class that we have at the SBDC. It's about cash flow to kind of get to the street smart side, profitability, if you will. Inventory is a big one. When you pay vendors is a big one. When you collect money is a big one. And again, it's not the same as what your accountant gives you on a financial statement saying, are you profitable? That's strictly a time-based thing. Cash flow is based off of when you actually receiving money and what is going out. Any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
I do. If you're just starting a business,
Right.
how do you get your head around cash flow when you don't? You can't see the whole picture.
Can you tell me a bit about your business, briefly?
Still working on it. So
Okay.
I don't know a lot about cash flows, so would I need to come to a class there to kind of get a structure?
A quick
So I
question,
know
Rick.
the questions to ask.
Are you a retail business or is it business to business that you're?
It'll probably be business to consumer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're selling something to a consumer, I would generally expect that you're either taking a credit card or you're getting paid before you ship the service or the delivery, generally. I mean, you certainly shouldn't be waiting 30 days to get paid. So that eliminates a problem right there. Do you have to buy inventory for what you're selling?
Maybe.
So you just want to make sure that you're doing what's called turning that over a certain, maybe 6 times, 8 times a year. You don't want to be looking at $50,000 of inventory and then you find out you're only actually turning that twice a year. That's like a horrible number, but some people don't even measure that. And then you have a whole bunch of cash that's sitting there not doing anything for you. When you could be spending it on marketing, you could be spending it on sales efforts. And we have people who can actually very much talk to you about that. So if you wanted to get it installed with us, we can help you with that. But,
For free.
yeah, for free. Thank you.
Consulted for free.
Whoever the SBDC
How many of you use SBDC for free consulting?
Wow, great, okay. Thank you. And I'll touch a bit more on that also. Not having understanding your competitive advantage. Another thing I see at the SBDC is when people come in, they are a mile wide and they're a quarter inch deep. In your experience, do people like change? People like it? People hate it. They hate change generally. And when you're going out selling something new, you got to get people to change. They have to change what they're doing and look at your persuasion or your argument and go with you. So you have to have enough of a compelling proposition to get them to change. And you can't do that when you're all over the map as far as where you're going. So you really have to focus down what you're doing, look at who you want to hit, and you have to get much deeper. Because generally, people don't change behavior until you've had like 3 or 4 or 5 points of contact with them. They just don't change with one meeting that you have with them once a year. It's not often enough. It's not frequent enough to be impactful. So it's pretty important that you make an impact on the people you want to target. So therefore, you have to say no to some things that might not make sense where you're going strategically. And another thing on competitive advantage is how are you getting people to share a mind? How are you going to make an impact? I'm going to give you an example here. So anybody here use toothpaste? I'm going to show you the toothpaste market in 1975. That was it. You could get Crest or Colgate in one size, one package. That was your choices. So how easy do you think it would have been to go into that market and say, hey, I got something new? Not too hard. Third option, not bad. You want to see the toothpaste market today? That's it. I counted 63 toothpaste options. And the ridiculous part is, if you go to a Procter & Gamble or you go to Colgate Palmolive, there's people that are sitting in there thinking, we really need that 64th and 66th toothpaste option. This is what somebody's up against when you have to launch a new product into this market. How the hell do you get a competitive advantage out of that? So that is largely what's happened in a lot of industries. Think coffee, think beer. I mean, it is becoming a lot harder to get competitive advantage, but you have to have it if you want to have impact. Here's number 4. I'm sorry, any questions on competitive advantage before I jump about that? But I heard a great expression that I loved about 9 months ago. Somebody said, an ounce of strategy is worth a pound of marketing, and competitive advantage is finding your strategy. What are you going to do? I see this a lot. Walk through Old Town. Paying rent or mortgage on a physical space that's too big. You know, I get nervous if I see somebody's financials and they're spending like more than 10% on rent or lease costs of their income statement. And I see people that have 40 or 50% of their spending on lease space. Think back 2 years ago when there were 3 spice shops in Old Town within 200 yards of each other. And first of all, do you know how much spice you have to sell just to pay rent in Old Town, let alone have 3 of them? The first one was a great idea. The third one, I don't know. And they've since downsized. I mean, they've gone much smaller spaces. So this is a big thing that I am very dialed into. You know, I walk into certain places and they're like, you know, it's Saturday night, this is a restaurant, the place is 70% full. I don't know, not looking real promising. So I'm really looking for people to utilize all the spaces they're in, because it's expensive, and rent comes every month. It doesn't care whether it's your birthday, it doesn't care whether it's Christmas, you're gonna have a rent or lease payment every year. And I talk to people that they're like, oh, I run a business out of my home, and they're almost embarrassed. I'm like, great, I love it. Look at all the costs you're avoiding. It's great. I know a guy, met him a couple years ago, he makes outdoor gear. He sells $350,000 a year, makes the products in his basement. And I'm like, fantastic, you're my role model. He's gonna be in a presentation. But I'm like, God, why would he waste money on paying a lease somewhere? Again, stuff that could be spent for marketing, stuff like that. So, and by the way, if I'm not naming names here, when we consult with somebody, it is confidential unless they give us an okay to use their names, so that's kind of why I'm not mentioning names. Yes, ma'am?
Just an example, that's how the development where they started was making flies in their.
On the kitchen table, 1960, yep. You're exactly right, yep. Yeah. I heard that story over several years in Sydney, Nebraska, yes. Really? And what are they doing now? A $2 billion a year public company. Surprising your banker. You could substitute investor for banker. I've actually had people come to me and say, geez, I'm going to miss my bank payment. Do you think I should tell my banker? Yeah, they're going to find out. You're not going to slip it past them. And I really took it on myself to keep a relationship with the people who are loaning you money. I keep them up to speed on when I'm going to draw down a line of credit. I say why I want to use it, and they say, well, this person's kind of on top of it. What they don't like is surprises, because if you're a banker, most surprises are negative. And I know people have a hard-hearted relationship about bankers, but if you're in the banking industry, the average bad debt ratio, the average that you work off of is 1.5%, which means that you need to be right 98.5% of the time. And I look at my friends, and I'm like, God, I'd be lucky if I got 50-50 of them, and they're having 98.5. So it's tough work, and you have to be pretty sure about what you're doing. And that's why it really needs to be a partnership. And I'll mention this because of the audience, but I just read something the other day, and it was written by a woman in the venture capital world, of which there is a small number. And she said, it's really interesting to view how women view potential investors versus how men view them. When women talk to a potential investor, they kind of regard it as like a higher authority. And if somebody says a suggestion, that's kind of treated as like a dictate or a command. When men talk to investors, they kind of think about it in terms of a partner, and a suggestion is more along the lines of an opening to discussion. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And again, it's not my idea, but it was read by a woman. I thought it was kind of interesting. Anyway, one final thing. There was an SBA article that just came out about 2 months ago, and I was pretty shocked to read this in this day and age, but if you're a female applying for a bank loan, you have about a 29% lower probability of getting a loan than a man does. And the article went on to talk about, in a lot of cases, that's because they mentioned specifically that someone might not have fixed their credit rating before they went in to get the loan, and also in some cases the women are more likely to not have collateral, meaning they don't own the building, they don't have a machine, an expensive machine that could be resold in case the bank loan didn't work. But I sent that article out to all of my consultants, and I said the takeaway to this, whether you're male or female, is that if you think you might need a loan or you want to talk to an investor, the first thing you do is you look at your credit rating, which you can get, and you fix anything. If there's stuff that's not correct, you can get fixed. You don't want to go show a 580 credit rating to a banker if you can get it up to 700 or something like that. So take the initiative to do that before you get a loan. And then we do help people prepare for bank loans. We help walk through, there was a term called the 5 C's of credit. It's been around since the 1950s. It's still applicable today. Everybody talks about all the online stuff, but all they're basically doing is they're rattling through the 5 C's of credit. You have the ability to pay it back. What's your personal credit rating? What's your character? Things like that. So I thought that was noteworthy.
Do you think that could be partially related to the types of businesses that men versus women own?
Possibly, because I know a lot of many banks don't even lend money to startups, but if it's like a health club or a restaurant that traditionally have high failure rates, those might be more likely to get turned down. just strictly because of the nature of the industry. Yeah. So that might have something to do with it. The article talks primarily about people not having credit scores fixed and not having collateral, because the bank, in order to get that 98.5 success rate, they also want to have people pledge collateral along with the promise to repay the loan. So, okay. So that one, and number 6 is I see a lot of organizations that don't have clear-cut responsibilities for who's doing what, especially if it's like a family-owned business. I got one client, they're trying to go from $2.5 million to $5 million in sales, and I said, well, who's responsible for doing that? Well, Fred calls on that account because he's known him forever, and Jimmy does some of this over here, and the son's going to call him, and so nobody's responsible for that $2.5 million sales increase. Nobody. It's just kind of floating out there. So particularly if you're working with contractors, you're working with employees, you have to really be fairly tight on what's expected, what's the deliverable, what is your responsibility, what's my responsibility, because you have a lot of people counting on you. So that is something that I'd like to see developed a lot more. And I think you guys have some pretty good stuff that's coming up in some of your programs. The Larimer County Workforce Center does a nice job with some of that stuff as far as managerial development, employee development as well. So now I'm going to talk a bit about what can the SBDC do to help you with some of that stuff. Any questions, by the way, on the top 6 problems? Anybody got one of their own they want to add? All right. We basically do business education. That's in a nutshell what we do. And our mission is to help small business start, grow, and prosper. And there's about 900 SBDC centers around the country. We all get partially funded by the SBA as part of their business education process. There are 14 centers here in Colorado. I run the Larimer County Center. And I'm just going to give you a quick run through of some of the clients that we've had that have used our services. Anybody had Wonder Juice? This is Andrea Ritter. She runs Wonder Juice. It's a veggie fruit drink company doing really well, going very fast, trying to get in a lot of places. This is Ann with Handful of Herbs, edible herb packages. You might see her at some of the farmers markets. This is Kelsey Schwager. She runs the Fernway Inn and Hospital. It used to be the Sheldon House in Old Town, doing very well. The only hospital in Fort Collins, one of our success stories. This is Diane Muno, who owns 5 businesses in Estes Park, including the Spruce House, the White Orchid, the Christmas Shop, and a couple others I can't remember. SBDC client, we helped her with some disaster recovery stuff as well. So all these ladies have benefited from what we do. And as far as who we are in Larimer County, we've had the same local host and partial sponsor for 30 years, and that's Front Range Community College. I'm actually a Front Range full-time employee, as are my 2 people on the staff. So Front Range has really been a big unsung hero in this. About 55% of our clients are existing businesses, 45% are people that are looking to start something. And the consulting that we do, I'm going to skip the lower left part for a second so we can talk more about that. And some of the other success stories we have, Green Ride Shuttle, Patero Street Brewery, Bake Shop, and the other pictures you saw earlier. I'm going to talk quickly about this as a thanks to our sponsors, because the main thing I want to get across here is we get funding from a lot of different sources, and the plan is that everybody puts in a little bit, and collectively it's a pretty good program. But if you start clockwise in like the 1 to 3 o'clock position, oh, that's really hard to read, isn't it? Sorry. The blue is our federal SBA grant. That's about 25% of our funding. The red is Front Range Community College. So between Front Range and the SBA, that's about 50% of our funding. We get about, in the gold, they're about the 7 o'clock position. That is what we charge people for our training classes. The consulting is free, but the training classes are low cost, $20, $30, something like that. The gray is the City of Fort Collins, which has started funding us this year. Thanks very much. The City of Loveland funds us a little bit, because we have a lot of Loveland clients that come up to see us. Black is Jobs Bill, that comes from the state of Colorado. First National Bank has been a great sponsor of ours. The magenta is, I can't remember what that is, but that's other banks, other industry partners. And then the gold at the top of the 11 o'clock position is Larimer County, which also sponsors it. So that is all of our sponsors that make everything happen. Front Range, I just wanted to thank them again. We're coming up on 30 years of being their sponsors. They do fantastic work. Machinists, welding, 25,000 students system-wide, 8,000 on the Larimer campus. And they helped us get moved to the Inosphere, which we did about a year ago. We used to be in the Key Bank building. So what do? We basically have 3 tools that we do business education with. We do free, confidential, one-on-one consulting, where you can talk to one of our 35 some odd consultants that can help you best progress your business or help you with your issues. We did about 2,800 hours of consulting last year, which was up 62% over 2013. We do about 80 or 90 low-cost training classes and workshops on a variety of things and topics. And then we do connection to business resources, such as commercial banks, bookkeepers, business brokers, and there's quite a range of things that we connect people to. And just to give you a quick feel for our consultants, Andrea Grant is one of our financial consultants. She and her husband own 4 home equipment, the fixtures and the drawer pulls and drawing blank. But anyway, they own 4 stores throughout the Front Range that provide home furnishings, home fixtures, and is great one-on-one work, helping people develop cash flow, helping them with basic accounting statements, things like that. This is Bob Flynn, co-owner of Green Ride Shuttle. I think he was channeling his World War II bombardier in that photo. But he's a co-owner of Green Ride Shuttle, has grown from probably about a $2 million company 3-4 years ago to over 6 now. And he's come on board as one of our consultants. So if you're starting a transportation business, boom, you can talk to the guy that runs Green Ride Shuttle for free, and he'll walk you through issues, and you should be aware of this for the Public Utility Corporation, and you should be aware of this as far as retaining drivers, and do they require CDLs, and it's just all that expertise that really you'd be paying a lot of money for otherwise, and we provide it for free. So here's some of the things that our consultants do. They're all hands-on, small business or skill set experience. We can help you with branding, finance and accounting, commercial industrial businesses, real estate, market research, sales, retail, restaurant foods, operations, on and on, franchising, commerce. And we've also got specialty advisors, people who can help you with legal issues, business valuation, business brokers. So the consulting is a great program for us. Our training classes really fall into 4 areas. One is helping people get started, which is under the title of Business Basics. And we do a class called So You Want to Start a Business, if somebody's debating whether to do it. You know, it's a great time to be an entrepreneur, subject to the myths and problems that I cover, but it's also a great time to be an employee in Northern Colorado. A lot of people are really looking for, employees. I remember, man, owning my own business and somebody calls in sick, bam, that's your problem. Somebody calls in sick when you're the employee, not your problem, generally. So, there are some things to be said for that. And not everybody decides to start a business. Maybe they decide it's going to be too hard on the relationship. It's going to be too time consuming. There's a multitude of reasons, and somebody might make a very wise decision, and that's not the thing for them. So we're not cheerleaders, we're not promoters, we are here to provide real-world, useful advice. So we do a couple classes under Starting Up or Business Basics. We do 5 classes under the finance accounting part, basics of bookkeeping, taxes, cash flows, QuickBooks training. We do several marketing classes, advanced and beginning social media, websites, PR help, branding class, and then we do a 3-session business planning class where somebody actually wants to start to do some more detailed work to get their business plan together, and we can help with that as well too. We do track results from our clients individually; they're confidential, but over the last 3 years, from 12 to 14, we helped 64 businesses get started. We helped them either create or retain about 700 jobs. We helped them grow their sales about $12 million. And we helped them raise about $12 million of capital, whether it's through loans or some other investment. So these are some of the key economic impacts that we report to our state organization, and they report that Colorado-wide. Also related to our training events, and some of you I think have hit these, but we got 3 really cool events that are coming up in the evening. We bring in some New Belgium product, and it's very relaxed, and there's usually a panel. We've got one that's coming up next month on retail marketing boot camp, how to help get you ready for the holidays. In October, we have a restaurant and food workforce panel. We've got we've got the owner of Social and Rodizio Grill. We've got the owner of Canyon Bakehouse in Loveland. We've got the lady who owns several Silver Mine subs. They're going to talk about workforce issues. What are you doing to keep employees, retain employees? So, and the panel stuff I love. It's really interactive. There's a lot of give and take between the audience and the panelists. So we put the panelists on the spot a few times. And then our last event of the year is a health and wellness event at the end of November. And that's a piggyback off the very successful one that we did last month. So we're pretty excited about that. And those are evening events. They're all at the Enosphere from 4 to 6. And if you just get on our website, it'll show you the information that's on there. And you just need to register. They're free, but you do need to register. As I said, I cover the county. I don't think anybody here is from outside of Fort Collins, except you if you're from California. So we've been really involved with flood recovery. So far, since the flood, we have helped, in conjunction with the Estes Park Economic Development Corporation, we've gotten 56 Estes Park businesses $1.8 million flood recovery grants. And we're working on another round based off the wildfires in 2012. So that's been a great program. It's really helped a lot of the businesses who went through an awful tough time there. We've got classes that are going on in Estes Park this fall. We have consultancy classes in Berthoud. We're doing Wellington classes. And then, as I mentioned, we do a lot of Wellington as well.
What do you do in Wellington?
We just did last month a business planning class. And then we've got one last one coming up where we'll show you want to start a business. And we're doing it in the First National Bank building. It's right there on 6th Street, is it?
There's only like 6 streets.
There's a lot of cool businesses in Wellington. When you talk about under the radar that nobody really knows about, I'm a big fan of Wellington. It's got a lot going on. I'm like, God, I gotta tell your stories. I love that stuff. I mentioned connection to resources. We make it a point to know a lot of the commercial lenders because sometimes they run hot and cold by industries. There's a bank that loves lending money to people in the medical and dental fields. There's other banks that don't do startups. There's some banks that love machine shops. And we kind of try to feel where the sweet spots are so we can hopefully at least point a client in the direction where they're going to get an answer and get some response, if not hopefully a positive reaction. And bankers, to me, I'm like, if you need a loan, you need to go talk to about 4 bankers because they're all lending money, and a couple of them aren't going to get back to you, and one you're not going to like, but you only need one. It's like dating. You're not looking to date 4, you just want to date 1. So it's I really think it's a numbers thing as far as that sort of financing opportunity. There's an organization that we work with that called microlenders that I knew nothing about until I started this job. And they're kind of like quasi-banks, quasi-nonprofits. Colorado Enterprise Fund is one, Axion is another. We can help you with that information. But say you need $50,000 and your normal commercial bank will lend you $40,000. And oh my God, I want to get that done. The microlender will come in and say, yes, we're going to take a second position in the bank. We're going to lend you $10,000. It's going to be a little higher interest rate, but we're not going to worry about the collateral. So the deal gets done, and then you pay back the microlender. But it's a real service, and the traditional banks know about it because they work together pretty closely. Larimer County Workforce Center, we work with on a lot of HR stuff. There's an organization called PTAC, Procurement and Technical Assistance Corporation. If you're trying to sell to the government or to a school or to a penal system, they can help you with getting through all the government requirements to make that happen because there are a lot of dollars to be spent there. And most of these organizations have what are called set-asides for small businesses where they're required to spend 10, 15, 20% of their spend dollars with small businesses. And the problem isn't them doing that. The problem is them finding small businesses to spend money on. So that's where PTAC comes in. And there's a relatively new lady that just retired from Larimer County Procurement. Her name is Catherine Rowe, and she's forgotten more about this government stuff than I'm ever going to know. So a tremendous resource for Larimer County here. We provide legal help, bookkeepers, business brokers. I'm a big believer in, I get people who they own a welding business, they're passionate as welding, or it's a restaurant, they do cooking, and I mean, literally you see the shoebox full of receipts, and I'm going to work on QuickBooks this Saturday. Don't do it. I mean, pay somebody, whatever, but you're never going to be as fast and as accurate as they are. They work with it every damn day. You're going to try to do it once a month. Just pay somebody. that kind of goes to that partnership thing where you're not going to be good at everything. So, and then you're spending money on stuff, you're spending time on the stuff you love. So I think that's pretty important. Okay, so there's our contact information. Our website, which is up at the top, has a lot of current info. We would love to work with you. Feel free to call us. We can help you get started, help you progress with whatever you're doing. And thank you. That is the end of my presentation, but if there's any more questions, I'd be happy to talk. Address them. Appreciate your time.
Does anybody have questions on what the Small Business Development Center might be able to offer you? Are there other questions that you wondered about how they can consult with you or specific business questions? Mike's got the time right now. We've got a little bit of time. If you like, if you don't, that's okay too. But we're super thorough. You were super thorough.
You answered the questions I had.
We try to leave no stone unturned. We don't want any surprises. So.
Well, I'll say that my husband and I are signed up for the business structure class, September 18th.
Oh, okay.
Because we are going to rebrand, and it's a sole proprietorship, and he says, I want ownership stake.
Ooh, yeah.
So we're going to go take that and see what we really want to change our structure.
I would change the sole proprietorship. You know what?
Yes, for legal reasons.
Exactly.
Yes.
You don't have the so-called corporate shield where your personal assets are. I don't care whether you're a S Corp, I don't care whether you're an LLC, just don't be a sole proprietorship for that reason.
So it's been on the to-do list, and so now it's kind of like with the rebrand, we're like, okay, we actually need to do that, but we're trying to decide if we do want to be an LLC or if we want to be something different, or if we want to be an LLC filing as something different.
And by the way, we do that class with, if you talk to a lawyer, the lawyer gives you advice based off of legality. If you talk to an accountant, the accountant gives you advice based off of your tax exposure. So we make them do the class together. It's done by a lawyer and an accountant.
That's
so
why
you
we
get both
signed up.
stories of it.
So we get both sides of the argument.
Yes, and like most things in life, somewhere in the middle is probably the accurate part. You don't want to be too far one way or the other. So, anything else?
What other classes do you have coming up?
I don't know. Look at our. If you look, we have so many. There's 3.
I put the calendars over there.
Oh, great! Thank you. The best thing to do is to check our website, and that'll show you the classes and events, evening events now that are coming up. I know we've got a September 15th, 6 to 8 p.m. event, so you want to start a business. That's one of the evening classes that we're doing, and we're really looking to move some of these things to podcasts, webinars, so that people can see them in Merkit, in Estes Park, things like that. So, yeah, we have a lot of interesting stuff going on. It's yes, ma'am.
I'm not totally sure what I'm asking, but hopefully that'll be okay. I feel like a lot of, in my situation, and a lot of small businesses like deal with this idea of sort of like, I think it's called like imposter syndrome. Like you really don't feel like you're qualified to be a business, you know what I mean? So I'm just sort of interested, or like, should I really be running something? I don't know, you know? So I'm just interested in maybe like experiences that you've had with people, or just what comes to mind when you hear about that.
Ego comes to mind.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people who nobody could be an expert on everything, and I think I made that clear. But I see nobody ever wants to say, I don't know, but in a lot of cases you don't know because you're relying on somebody else to do that, and it would just be a lot simpler if you would just hear people say, I don't know. For example, I ask people, they start telling me about business. Are you making a profit? Oh yeah, I'm making a profit. What did you pay yourself? Oh, I didn't really pay myself anything. Well, if you weren't there and you had to hire somebody to do what you're doing, you think you'd have to pay them? Yeah, well, I would rethink the profit thing. Maybe. I'm just trying to get to reality so that we can kind of deal with next steps sort of thing. That's kind of a decision of, there's a lot that goes into it besides just the business part. What kind of time do you have? Do you have small children where working 60 hours a week might not be an option? So that takes some discussion. It takes some discussion with a significant partner if you have it. So there's a lot that goes into that in terms of how much do you want to put in, how much time do you want to work, what kind of profit do you want to make? I mean, some people go into this with goals, I want to make $200,000. Other people we're going to be doing a success story next month. When a woman came to us a couple of years ago, she wanted to be able to make her car payment with her business, and I think she's got like 4 employees now. So I mean, it will be a success story shortly. But so it's all over the map. I mean, there's a lot of ego that gets wrapped up into it, though, in terms of how people present it. And I remember being a business owner. I mean, certain times, I mean, oh my God, you're scared to death. That check from Cabela's didn't come in. I got payroll on Friday, and all your employees are looking at, oh man, he's living right. That guy is just, you know, and I'm petrified. Oh my God. And that's kind of one of the things that you know, is like the duck swimming under the surface. So
everybody experiences that?
generally, yes. I believe, unless you're the Facebook guy or something like that. But yeah, there's challenging moments. I mean, and I've had it with every one of those stakeholders I talked about: employees, vendors, major customers. I had to spend, before I could sell my business, I had to do a $30,000 facility upgrade so I could pass the state fire and electrical requirements, because the new hire didn't want to mess with it, understandable. So that was a pretty big thing that I had to kind of push and pull this government agency to get done. So, yes, ma'am.
So I had a question, I guess, on the paying yourself part.
Yeah.
How do you learn to do that when you have things like inventory where you know that you're going to have to purchase like a massive amount of things? How do you know how much you can afford to pay yourself and when? You know, like how do you balance that? Starting out when you really don't know your flow yet.
Well, that's where some cash flow planning could come in. I mean, and if you're starting, you know, I'm differentiating that from, say, a seasonal business where seasonal you say, oh, I got to buy a bunch of stuff. Well, conversely, there's times when you don't have to buy it. But if you're just starting, you may need a loan. You may need a small loan to tide you through with that. You know, how much you need, that's an individual question with you, which our consultants can help you with. But again, you know,
say like you have cash flow coming in, and you keep it in your account, because when it comes time, like your stock gets low, you have to order like $500 to $1,000 of something at a time, and you're afraid if you pay yourself, you're not going to have that money when your stock runs out. Like, how do you? Yeah.
that is all the moving parts that go into cash flow. You might have to pay your vendors a little more slowly. You might have to, maybe you take a little less that time as opposed to taking a little more. But I can't answer. There's no set formula for doing it. That's where, you know, a financial person, one of our consultants, could help you with a cash flow schedule. And it's not. I used to do that on literally a piece of paper, and I would just kind of look at the big picture of, okay, checks coming in from Cabela's, I got to pay a wood vendor, payroll's coming up here, quarterly taxes are here, and you could just kind of see, oh man, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have a low point. I might need to draw down my line of credit from my bank, and the bank is fairly impressed when you say, hey, look, this is what's going on. I might need to draw down the line of credit. They go, huh, this lady's on top of it. Versus, oh my God, I'm out of money. Can you get it to me today? And that's their world. I mean, normally that's the normal call. So, but cash. The answer is you need a little cash flow planner to help you with that.
Do most large businesses take out loans or have lines of credit so they can to do those?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So is that a differentiator between a small business? Like my business, I've never taken a loan, and I either just pay myself less, or I mean, I'm at a point now where I can pay myself what I want to pay myself, and then I just have extra money sitting there. You know,
good for you. All right.
But like, I've never, you know, if it's slow, I just pay myself less. You know, I haven't. So is that like a differentiator between a small business and a large business?
It is to me an actual different. It's not a performance differentiator, because the fact that you haven't had to take out a loan, I love that. I mean, that's great, paying yourself from cash flow. I'm thinking of like larger corporations where, you know, they're in the stock market. Their money's come in from the sale of stock, so they generally have lines of credit where they can draw down if things are slow, or they want to buy some small division or something like that. So yes, that's the normal setup in a corporation. But you know, maybe you decide, oh, I'm going to bring on an employee, or I'm going to expand into some new product. I mean, that might be the time where you say, well, I'll look at line of credit. Just give me something that'll help me with that. I mean, and it's good to have that in your pocket, because when you really need the money and then you gotta go scrambling for it, it's hard to get that established. So if you're better off to get that set up, just so you've got it ready. I mean, other people use credit cards to do that. I'd rather pay the 7% on a line of credit than 22% on a credit card, but that's the difference. Yes?
What is the restriction as far as the amount of free counseling that you can receive through SBDC?
We've got consultants who are generalists. You can see them as much as you want. We have other people that we call specialists, like a marketing specialist, social media specialist. You get 3, each session is an hour, is a normal session. With a marketing specialist and some of our other specialists, you get 3 sessions max. It's still all free, but there's a limit because of their how much they're engaged that people can talk to. But the generalists, you can see as much as you want. And our consultants do try to cross-reference people. Like somebody, say you come in, you talk to a generalist, and the generalist listens to what you have to say, and says, well, I understand you want to beef up your website, why don't you talk to this person, and you don't really have any kind of cash flow plan, you don't really know what your financial statement, why don't you just sit down with our financial person, and then you'll get some decent cross-references with some of the other consultants that can help you with what you're doing. So. I thank you very much. And I have cards if anybody didn't get one or wants to talk to me or see me, or you can either go on the website. And by the way, our website, it says there's a consulting tab, and if you want to sign up for consulting, click on the consulting tab. It will say either new client or returning client. Click on a new client. It's going to ask you some intake questions, and then we'll call you after you submitted that and set you up an appointment. Because I have a couple of people in our office, and they're very good at playing matchmaking with what you need compared to what our consultants are that are in that field. And we've got industry consultants, restaurant, food people. We've got retail.